Eh bien, merci à
Right, well, thank you for being back. Thank you to all four of you for being here. We'll be discussing the issue of inland freight theft throughout the supply chain. This is a big issue, isn't it? To discuss this, we have Colonel Jean-Charles Bidot. Colonel, you are an officer in the Gendarmerie, head of the central office fighting that sort of crime. Then Bérangère Fontaine, you're in charge of cargo claims, transport and logistic manager at Helvetia Assurance. Thorsten Neumann is head of TAPA Europe and Middle East and Africa, in charge of securing the supply chains, and you have issues of certifications. You make sure that infrastructure is compliant. There's certifications of certain types of warehouses, trucks, and parking lots. And then Jennifer Selle, you're in charge, you're surveyor for goods in transit for AM Group, a subsidiary of Alcara. So we'll be discussing theft, how to secure flows and such like. But Colonel, first, can you tell us the role of your central office for fighting against what is known as roaming crime? OCLDI is the name of our agency. It was created in 2004. Its terms of reference were defined by a ministerial decree. We're looking at typically transnational criminals. The criteria of what you call roaming crime is serial crimes, manifold places of theft, and the organized nature of that crime. There are 120 of us working. This is a central office of the French Gendarmerie. We have police officers as well as gendarmes. We have liaison officers, one from Romania, another one from Georgia, because a large portion of our business is international judicial cooperation. There's a central office in Arcueil, in the suburbs of Paris. There's a division of criminal intelligence, one of international cooperation, one on monitoring, and we have investigators, and we have in Senlis, Toulouse, Rennes, and Lyon, we have detachments, and we work, as I said, directly with the local gendarmes and the police forces around the country. But again, we have judges running this because these are judicial investigations. Thorsten, TAPA collects data, doesn't it, on theft incidents. How big is the problem today?
It's huge. You know, it's if you look at the total scale, especially in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but also in France, the question is not really if you become a victim of a crime. The question is when you will become a victim of the crime. If you look at cargo crime is rising for the last 25 years. So TAPA was founded already 25 years ago, and we are now really the biggest supply chain resilience security association in the world. I can give you thousands of examples. So we can start with small stuff, we can start with the big crime, but what we can see is that the average value in the crime is going up for the last 10 years. And if you look at the recent numbers in France, for example, and when we call about a major loss for us is every crime which is above 100,000 euro. And the average in France is 800,000 euro for major crime. And every 24 hours, the recorded crime to our database is 180,000 euro only in France. So that's the recorded crime. And the recorded crime is the tip of the iceberg. It's really, we see something, but at the end of the day, we see nothing compared to the reality. It's great when you are, in some statistics, when you are on number one. In my statistic, it's not good when you are on the first place, because then it means that either you have a challenge or you are not doing enough against organized criminals attacking your supply chain. And that's also something what is quite important. This changed dramatically over the last couple of years. So we are not talking about petty theft anymore. We are talking about organized criminals attacking your supply chain on a day-by-day perspective. We are talking about organized criminals infiltrating your organization. And a good example is a German company where the loss value was more than 200 million euro. And at the second, when they destroyed this organized gang, 12 months later, there was another organized criminals attacking the same company. And after 12 months, it was again 25 million euro. Maybe you can afford it once, maybe twice, but it's sometimes difficult to afford that. And the numbers are going up like crazy right now.
Merci.
Thank you, Thorsten. Well, what types of goods are most targeted? I mean, not just Thorsten, others probably have an answer. Well, maybe Colonel Sturt, what type of goods are the most often targeted? Well, tobacco is one typical thing where you have regular assaults on tobacco shipment, also perfumes, because they are high-value goods. Alcohol, because again, there's a high resale value. It's easier for thefts to sell them back. And the precious metals, copper in particular, lots of theft there. Thorsten, is it the same? Is that your observation as well? Perfumes, etc.
Whatever thing is on the road, criminals will steal it. That's very easy. And there's one reason for that. There's no black market anymore. 10 years ago, we still had a black market. You knew when you buy stolen items. You knew exactly that when you buy a car radio and the cables will hang loose, it's a stolen item. You knew when you went to the train station like Paris Nord and a guy came to you with a brand new mountain bike and it's selling it to you for 200 euro, it's a stolen mountain bike. So this was the black market 10 years ago. Now you buy everything on genuine platforms. You buy it on Amazon, you buy it on Alibaba, you buy it on Temu, flea market, whatever the name is, and this is the biggest benefit for the criminals. Because 10 years ago, their margin was 10 to 20%. Now their margin is 90 to 100%. And that's the difference. And that's the reason why the market is there for everything. They steal it in France and they sell it in Belgium. You know, they steal it in Belgium and they sell it in Germany. So this is exactly what is the biggest challenge for the industry, and what is the biggest opportunity for the organized criminals.
Je confirme.
I can confirm. I mean, I was quoting the largest items, but everything is stolen. Dyson vacuum cleaners, toilet paper even, I mean, anything. You can't imagine. Some things are beyond belief. Jennifer, in the supply chain, can you tell us your role in investigating a theft? Well, thank you for giving me this chance to speak of this activity. Thank God there are more women doing the job. This is a side comment. But an expert has to go through all the logistical operations, that is the supply chain, looking from the order all the way to delivery, going through all stages of loading, bulk breaking, all the way to delivery. And once all that supply chain has been mapped out, we have to say where the windows of vulnerability are located and where the risk factors are heightened. And then we think of steps that can be, or corrective steps that can be taken to help prevent these instances of theft. And once we've gone through this full examination, investigation, we provide the information to insurers, and then they can take a position on the guarantees, on possible compensation or other recourse. But that means we have to examine also the state of the damages inflicted. So, for instance, if there's a partial theft, we go there, we try and quantify the missing parcels, we look at invoices and other documentation, and then we look at who may be held responsible. And for instance, we will try and see if a third party may be responsible, or there may be conditions where the carrier was contracted by the forwarder, and maybe there was a weakness there, and also the victim can find a recourse or a remedy pointing to responsibility. So that's how we act on the field, but we also we provide consultancy and advice to the insurance companies. We can tell them how they can how thefts can be avoided in the first place. But so that applies to also the policy holders. Also for remedies, for instance, there are reservations that can be defined. It has to be motivated, and we have to see. If you have reservations, there's a timetable to abide by. There are some formalities, and if there's an actual theft, well, they also have to lodge a complaint with the competent authority, and that includes the gendarmerie. Yes, yes, very much so. We cooperate regularly with the authorities, with law enforcement authorities, to if only to provide feedback information, something that we found on the field. I mean, I think we have a central role to play, very much like other people here. Connection between analyzing the circumstances of the theft, but also assessing the damage, and then solutions that can be introduced. Well, the gendarmerie, Colonel, are there areas or supply chains that are more vulnerable than others? Well, look, if you look at the general picture, the northeastern quarter of the country is more vulnerable. The A1 motorway between Paris and Lille, these are very sensitive areas. The A4 motorway, the eastern part of the country, these are vulnerable areas. Between Arras and Amiens. The N4 motorway, if you have a driver, truck company, haulage company that stops anywhere between Vitry-le-François and Saint-Dizier at night, there you have exponential risk. I mean, you have a high risk of some of the cargo being sampled, as it were. Well, yes, there are woods, and then you have lumberjacks operating in the woods, as it were. There is a well-known camp of roamers who specialize in operating this sort of samples, and they're pretty good at that sort of thing. And then in the Rhone River area, in the A7, A8 motorways, north of the Isère and east of Lyon, I mean, the areas are described. We're looking at 2/3 of the crimes committed there. There's a concentration in these areas. More than 2/3 of the crimes are committed on rest areas, on motorways and parking lots. And 80% of the crimes are committed at night. I mean, you have a bell curve with a maximum between 2 and 4 a.m. Well, thank you for this statistics, and this is why you have Romanian and Georgian officers working as the liaison officers. Well, you have a number of criminal gangs that are now specialize in freight theft, but if you look at the crime committed by Romanian criminal gangs, especially on some parts of Romania itself, they are engaged in fraud as well. But sometimes they just steal the goods downright. And in terms of damages, in terms of the number of incidents are highest, especially with these roamers, the what do you call the gypsy traveling population, but also anywhere between Beaune and Lyon on the southeastern part of the country. But the modus operandi is fairly straightforward. They cut through the tarp on the truck to see what's inside, and then if it's worth their while, the supply chain follows. I mean, they have the logistics ready. Some will sample a few parcels with light vehicles. So here we're looking at maybe a pallet full of parcels that you can do with a light vehicle. Then when you have a commercial vehicle, it can have 3 or 4 pallets, and then you have organized people who have stolen trucks and reconnaissance vehicles. I mean, this is fully organized crime, and then they will just withdraw the entire load. There are 2 tactics used by these criminals. You have also documentary crime, and then you have actual theft on the trucks themselves, physical. Colonel, could you tell us the different modus operandi, especially on, so you're talking about freight exchanges. Is it like identity theft? How does documentary crime work? Well, this is fraud, so you have different types of techniques, but just like fraud to individuals versus companies, I mean, even the French president himself has been victim of such attempts. So you'll change an email address, you'll change a phone number. If you have access to that, you have operators that make it possible to call telco operators that enable you to call from abroad, and then the person receiving the call thinks it's a local call, and so this sort of thing is easy enough to do. And so you really need to check who's actually talking to you on the phone, because you're talking about huge amounts. I myself had to address one such situation in the previous job. It was in Reims, eastern France. This was a cargo freight of champagne bottles and cigarettes. There was accomplices. I mean, the private investigators who worked with us provided lots of elements. We were able to go very fast. In a matter of 10 days, we were able to trace at least items all the way in Belgium. They had accomplices with warehouses in northern France. But we're talking huge amounts here, and this quickly becomes an international thing. And Thorsten, have you found this business to become more professional? I mean, these criminals.
Ben oui, bien sûr, il y a une forte professionnalisation, et surtout si vous
business rules, you know, so we have a code of conduct, you know, you have ethics, and you follow strictly your rules within your company. Criminals do not follow rules. So that's very important. The technology we use, they use it also, but they use it on a wider scale. You're all insurance guys, or you're industry experts. So technology makes life easier, but normally never more secure. A keyless car is the best example. Isn't it great technology? Isn't it amazing? You know, but it's the stupidest technology in the world. You can steal every car now within 10 seconds or 60 seconds without even making a physical damage to a car. You know, look at technology, what's going on. Look at artificial intelligence, you know, like what you said, Colonel, you know, like, and the artificial intelligence is going like that. You know, we produced already faked phone calls to carriers with your voice. I need you exactly for 10 seconds. That's all what I need. I need your voice for 10 seconds. I need your face for 30 seconds. And I can create a perfect Pascal Dubois who will speak perfect English and will call everybody with his voice. And that's exactly what criminals are doing. And 70% of all crime is insider crime. So they position their people into your organization. And the second challenge is also on this one is that we put more and more value into our supply chain. You know, we are more lean. We try to make our supply chain faster, better, more effective. Okay, nowadays you say, you know, CO2 neutral. So, but it's more effective. So you try to do it more lean. What does happen? You put more and more value on a truck. 5 years ago, a Euro pallet of smartphones was approximately 400,000 euro. Now it's 1.5 million euro. That's 1 Euro pallet. One. That's all. You know, it's a lot of money. And that's the biggest challenge. And of course, if you look at criminals, they are very clever. You know, let's be very open and honest. You know, so we talked about the Romanians. You know, so Romanians are jumping on driving trucks. and they do it already for 15 years. And all of them are coming from Romania. They jump on a driving truck, they unload the truck whilst the truck is driving with 80 kilometers an hour on a German highway. And the truck is empty. It's never stopped. Why? Because normally goods at rest are goods at risk. So you try to avoid to stop. But even the criminals are in a position now to unload a truck whilst it's driving. And more will come, especially now with modern technology.
Je rajouterai simplement la numérisation de l'économie.
I'll simply add the digitalization of the economy in our lives has really accelerated how easy it is for scams like that to develop, as well as organized crime groups that can set up servers and fake websites and so impersonate someone else on a cargo exchange. It's very easy for them. It's not reassuring at all, is it? Well, there's a rise of cybercrime. Jennifer Selle for AM Group as a field surveyor, what type of anomalies or clues can raise warning signs for logistics operators or road hauliers? Well, in the field, we can see some fairly recurring themes, strong signals that we try to raise awareness about amongst road hauliers in everything we do. As Colonel Bideau said earlier, indeed, we often see that they use false email addresses or fake domains to impersonate hauliers on transport exchanges. Also, often the transport offers are too attractive to be true. And that should raise a few red flags about that vigilance. So often hauliers offer pickup times that are very quick compared to other legitimate operators. We can also see that often there are other signals which raise alarms, like the loading of instructions about how to load the cargo, a change in bank details. Those are so many signals that we can see on a daily basis, and so we raise awareness amongst road hauliers about that. I'd like to discuss own account transport as well. That's the theft of professional tools and equipment used by tradesmen. Very often they use light commercial vehicles that often have advertising on the side. We know that these tradesmen need advertising for their services as part of their business, and these are things that they sort of advertise also to criminals. So we try to tell them to make their transport vehicles as secure as possible over the weekend or when they have to park for a long time. And also, they are highly vulnerable because very often these are vehicles that do not have any alarm or locking systems that are others than what the car makers put in them. So it's easy for criminals to get access to all the tools that are inside. And so this is something that tradesmen usually do out of convenience. And it's usually a bad habit on their part. Well, that's less for road transport, but it's also interesting to know something more about this. Also, we should tell our tradies, friends, not to have any advertising on the side of their vehicles. Well, it's also, we're talking about certain profiles of people. They don't have a lot of cash in their company, so you can't prevent them from advertising their services on their vehicles. Bérangère, Fontaine, let's talk about insurers. There are quite a few in the room. What kind of prevention is expected by insurers to cover risk? The type of prevention expected, we expect a lot of vigilance from them. We talked about theft while parked, as Colonel Bideau said earlier. That's what we can see. Thefts mostly take place at night on parking areas, motorway services, but that are not secure. The first recommendation about theft while parked is to, of course, avoid parking a vehicle for a long period of time, even more so when it's loaded with high-value goods. The idea is to say that a vehicle should never stay unmonitored when it's loaded, and you should also focus on secure parking. A common rule of thumb, which might sound stupid, is to lock all access points to the vehicle and its cargo. In some cases, we can see that it's not always the case. And also, when you've got high-value cargo, you should add an extra layer of security with additional protection devices. As insurers, we do not usually list all these devices exhaustively, but would recommend any device that will increase protection for the vehicle. So that can be anti-theft locks on the trailer hitch. We could also have geopositioning systems, alarm systems, but also security seals, so like Navlocks. And I imagine that there are obstacles to the implementation of these recommendations. Could you list a few? Well, we would wish for there to be no obstacles, because given the financial amounts at stake, both for insurers and clients, by the way, and all the other damage that you cannot necessarily think of, but the reputational damage vis-a-vis their clients, we wish for there to be no obstacles, but we know there are some. For additional protection devices, that's a financial obstacle. When you have to equip an entire fleet of vehicles, so road hauliers are going to be reluctant to do that. And the second main obstacle, I think, is in the implementation of these protective measures is unfortunately the human factor. We realize that our policyholders usually adopt prevention policies vis-a-vis their drivers, but unfortunately in their daily work, drivers, for convenience reasons, for lack of time also, or because they're not sufficiently aware of the risk they're exposed to when they leave their vehicles parked just about anywhere and just about anyhow, well, they don't follow these prevention rules, and you end up with situations that are pretty catastrophic. Just before we move on to the solutions and everything you can offer, Colonel, could you tell us how you're able to identify identity theft in those scams? Are there specific methods? The number one bit of advice to give, I talked about it earlier, is to really brief your employees, all those who deal with chartering, about all details. What we can see is, especially for people you don't know, but even the people you know, a simple one-letter change in an email address can be problematic. Check phone numbers. Also, check everything when you're dealing with a new partner. So do check email addresses. Don't hesitate also to check people's identities with all the open source methods that you have now. Take some time to do that, because otherwise it can go very quickly. I was telling you earlier, you've got people who can get servers set up and set up false websites. People are going to study your organization, call your secretary up, or the person in charge of... they will often be on first-name terms with the people, with their counterparts in your company, and that way they'll be able to get a contract signed. And so that's how the scam is sealed. Their scam is to get something in exchange of nothing via impersonation. And that doesn't just apply to road transport. Yes, but in the last 5 or 10 years, it's been going up very strongly year after year, all types of scams, but especially transport exchange scams. Now let's move on to solutions that you can offer. Torsten, have you got any solutions to propose for prevention for road hauliers?
Yeah, representing Tapa, I would like to say, first of all, we are on the market for 25 years, and we create standards, industry standards for 25 years to mitigate your risk within your supply chain. Right now we have 4 different standards, which is focused really on these different modes of transport. So it's the FSR, which is focused on your facilities. The TSR, it's a trucking security requirements focusing on your trucks. The PSR on parking places, and last but not least, the supply chain cybersecurity standard. But that's not the point. The biggest point is train your people. Create awareness. Tell them the truth. The world is not always good. You can call it Amazon Prime Day, but you can also call it organized criminal Prime Day. Because they know exactly this is the day where millions of products will be ordered and they will be shipped to your houses. Create awareness. And at the end of the day, what you would like to do is ensure a mindset change. You can have the best technology, but when people cannot use this technology, you will never be sufficient. You need to find the right mix between people and technology. I can give you the best standards in the world. I can give you a membership in Tapa. And of course, I'm happy when you become a member in Tapa, but a membership means nothing. It's like becoming a member in a gym, paying for it, go there for 2 weeks, and afterwards you're not going there anymore. And after 12 months you still pay, but you're not losing weight. What is the reason for that? Because you're not active. Be proactive, be active, understand the risk, share information. Tell the people, tell the truck drivers, don't park in this area because the gypsies are waiting around the corner. This is the point, and be aware of also that within your own organization, you have the Luke Skywalkers, you have great people, but unfortunately, you also have Anakins. And you can be sure that there will be at least one Darth Vader in your organization. At least one. And I can see that some of the room already thinking that I should become a Darth Vader, it's a better business. But that's the point, because especially for the young generation, it's a very, very attractive business where you can make a lot of money in a very short period of time with a very, very low risk. Because it's a low risk crime. Even when the police will catch you, at least in Germany, you will have some social hours, you clean the kindergarten, and potentially you have a record in your police record. But then you buy a clean one on eBay for 10 euro. So that's how it is. It's very easy. Criminals are not stupid. So find the right way. Create awareness.
That's very clear. Jennifer Selle, based on your field experience, what are the recommendations of EM Group to avoid crime? As part of what we do, we'll remind people of what was just said by the other speakers. We'll recommend 3 levers for action. First of all, securing sites with the implementation of physical barriers, i.e. setting up security gates, security lockups, also the implementation of CCTV. Will also pay attention to the fact that sites have constant guards in place to deter criminals, so we'll recommend all that. We'll also focus on securing transport vehicles. As Bérangère said earlier, we'll urge people not to park vehicles for too long on public car parks, and check also that the locks are working. Things that are mostly common sense, but that are worth reminding every now and then. And also, as was discussed, we'll also talk about training people. We are fond of saying that awareness does not preclude controls, and so you often have to remind road transport players that it's important for their employees to be familiar with the best practices to put in place on their sites. So a lot of common sense, and you need to train your people. That's the big gap often. Bérangère, in terms of prevention, do you think that you're heard by road hauliers? Well, it would be difficult for me to answer in their place and say whether we heard or not. But at any rate, at Helvetia, we're doing everything we can to be heard. We've talked a lot about scams on transport exchanges. To give you one example, recently, in fact, we put preventative measures in place that are specific, a small prevention campaign that went through the creation of a technical spec sheet for advice to our clients. And so it's available on our website now, but we also made sure that it would be disseminated more widely via emailing campaigns or on our social media like LinkedIn. The idea, once again, is to raise awareness amongst our clients so that they can adopt best practices. Adopt best practices, yes. Well, that's not always widely shared. Torsten, any technological innovations, recent ones, that you think are particularly promising?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of innovations right now, and what is the biggest point is really, again, to find the right mix between technology and your people. You can have the best technology. We can talk about now GPS logs, we can talk about, navigating systems, we can talk about monitoring, we can talk about logs, we can talk about everything. But you need to be aware of that there's always a counter technology, and the counter technology is always used by the criminals. Again, you can have the best GPS system in the world, there's always a GPS jamming system. And if you have, for example, a great log, you can have also a system which will interfere the communication. That's really quite important. And there's a lot of interesting technology on the market, which is very cheap, by the way. Technology is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And counter technology is also getting more cheaper. When we talk about, for example, access control system, there's a very nice device you can buy on Amazon, and I would like to encourage you to buy it. It's called a Flipper. It's a Flipper Zero. You can read every smart card, RFID, NFC card, within 10 seconds. And it's a very easy technology, and it's a very cheap technology. It's from China. As I said, it's less than 200 euro. And you can use it everywhere. I need you for 10 seconds. When I'm staying beside you for 10 seconds, I can get your information. And that's really quite important. I think the biggest opportunity is also use AI for your advantage. That's very important, So don't be afraid of artificial intelligence. Use it on a way which is giving you the best benefit for your organization, especially to understand the risk. Use artificial intelligence to map your risk within your supply chain and tell the questions also to the people, And I think last but not least, from a technology point of view, if you look at the world right now, if you look like, for example, like the iPhone is on the market now for 17 years and that's it, but the technology is going so fast, like never ever before. And especially computer power technology. So use it for your advantage. That's for me the biggest point right now.
So use artificial intelligence, yes. Well, I'd like to echo that. Are we going to have to create new jobs, Torsten? Or the people already working in companies are going to have to retrain and so enter in-house and be trained about AI, because you need a lot of training to use it correctly?
Yeah, the biggest point is on this one is really that, a lot of people are afraid of this new technology. And for some of you who know me, I work for Microsoft. For 6 years, I was based in the headquarters. I had 2 people only working on artificial intelligence. Understand what really AI means. Because a lot of people are using the term AI and it's not AI. And don't be really afraid of to touch AI and use AI. There's amazing technology on the market you can use for your advantage. Like translation technology, avatar technology, training technology. If you look at our training program with artificial intelligence, we are now in a position to train more than 5,000 industry experts every year only on the TAPA standards. In the past, it was 400. Now it's 5,000. Spread this communication, and yeah, there will be new jobs. There will be already jobs. We even don't know what's going on in the next 5 years. So I think that's really quite important.
Well, Colonel Bidot, at your office, are you also using artificial intelligence? We're beginning to, yes. Any specific training needs? We're really at the beginning. Yes, it's very nascent. Okay, for the four of you, could you say in a few words what is the priority measure to implement tomorrow in a transport company? Colonel? The number one measure, I don't think there's one single measure that would be a silver bullet, but you need to brief your people well. You need to prepare them correctly, drivers or the people handling bids on transport exchanges. Also prepare them when it comes to very high value cargo. Brief your drivers a little bit so that they can adopt the right reaction in case they are boarded and detained. Don't take any risks. Try to take pictures, but don't put your life at risk. As soon as possible, call emergency services and the police. Don't touch anything on the scene then. And similar things like that. So common sense, basically. Yes, common sense, but it's not necessarily obvious when you're in shock after such an event, after being kidnapped. It's quite shocking and brutal. So yes, a lot of training in the future. I don't have time to give you the floor to the other one, but thank you to the four of you for your feedback. It was very concrete. Thank you.
Dans quelques instants,
In a few seconds, we'll welcome Stéphanie Roy once again to present two foundations. Thank you once again for your attention.